Hello, YouTube. This is Mahadeva the Thunder Wizard, and today I want to talk to you about specifically an interesting ascension symptom that I am experiencing, and you may be having this experience as well, and I'm curious to see how many people, even if they don't understand or know about the things that we're talking about, if they are also experiencing this symptom. So this is the thunderwizard.com YouTube channel. Welcome. What we do on this channel, the main thing that I am here to do is to give you the tools to help you not only have a better life, healthier, happier, more prosperous, but to give you the tools to completely shift yourself. If the information that is coming to me is accurate, then the earth is undergoing a massive shift on an evolutionary scale. And if you look at evolution, even the mainstream science understanding of how evolution works, evolution doesn't happen gradually. It happens in big leaps, instantaneous. And you see this in the archaeological record with all kinds of different animals. One day you've got a certain type of animal running the world, and then the next day they're gone. And out of nowhere, this new species seems to just come out of the blue, and it is running the show. And one of the most interesting things that I've found, again, this is coming from mainstream science, is that more and more evolutionary events seem to be coinciding with increased solar activity as well as decreased electromagnetism in the earth. And we found this, I've talked about this before, I find this very interesting. We find this with the disappearance, the extinction of the Neanderthals. That when the Neanderthals went extinct, it also coincided with a time where there was the same thing we have going on now, which is an incursion event, which means that the electromagnetic field of the earth is shifting, and as a result is weakening, and there's holes in the magnetic field. And what that means is that even without any increased solar activity, it means that the energy from the sun, the radiation of the sun, is getting to the earth in greater amounts. But when you combine that with a solar event, you have increased solar activity combined with a reduced electromagnetic field, and you have extinction of species and new species arising. It means that the increased solar radiation is actually affecting the DNA of the animals on the planet. And so I came to this conclusion. Somebody had been saying this about, this is why the Neanderthals died out. By the way, Neanderthals, in case you want to understand how big of a deal that is, Neanderthals had been on planet Earth, had been in Europe for 400,000 years, almost 500,000 years. Modern human beings have only been around for 100,000 years. Okay? So, and in terms of modern human beings, like with cars and planes and things like that, that's basically just barely happened. So these Stone Age Neanderthals were doing their thing exactly the same way for 400,000 years, 500,000 years. and one day they went bye-bye. And you can say that it was because of humans encroaching on them, but really there isn't really a whole lot of evidence for that. But what we do know is that the radiation, the solar radiation increased as a result, at least, we don't know if the sun increased or not, but we do know that there was an incursion event where the electromagnetic field of the Earth had severely reduced. And most recently, if you've been watching my channel, I've been sharing with you what has been coming to me that, by the way, you should know this. I mean, if you think that I am trying to be some kind of new age love and light guy, if you think that the idea of me talking about a shift to 5D and a solar flash and, bring in things like higher dimensional extraterrestrial beings of light, if you think this is easy or something that I wanted to talk about, you are dead wrong. None of this is anything that I even came close to considering up until the past couple of years. I didn't even believe in extraterrestrials a year ago. Didn't even believe they existed. I didn't think it was possible. So here I am now talking about looking for evidence to confirm what is coming to me, the information that is coming to me directly, which is that there is going to be a massive evolutionary shift, that the world as we know it, the three-dimensional world as we know it, is going to go bye-bye. It is going to go extinct. And that on top of that, there are fleets, thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, I don't know how many higher dimensional beings there are right now, just parked outside of Earth, not to mention inside of our solar system. And they are very actively working directly with human beings, and as it turns out, they have been for millions of years. One of the most interesting things that have come to me is this idea that the Earth herself is going to split into two different Earths. And I'm still trying to understand more and more about that. Let's see, is that the one I want? Yeah. I'm just like this, and this is the visualization of it, that it's like a cell and it's going to split into two. But what's going to happen is one of the Earths, this is the information we're getting, one of the Earths is going to go to a higher vibrational state, probably still technically within the third dimension, but the vibrational state of it is going to be such that everything will change in terms of how we interact with external reality and with each other and with higher dimensional beings and spiritual forces. So there will be a higher vibrational Earth, and then the understanding is that when they split, the other Earth is going to be a lower density three-dimensional Earth, where all of the things associated with 3D that we're trying to evolve from will get even worse. There will be more violence, there will be more feelings of isolation, there will be more mental instability, there will be more tyrants controlling the world, and disease and death, and all the things you don't like about Earth now is going to get worse. And I personally did not like that. I still don't, if I'm being honest. I still don't like that idea. But I'm warming up to it, not only because I've had personal experiences where higher dimensional beings have come to me and have told me that, yes, this is how it's going to happen. that's really the main thing, because I wouldn't have bought it otherwise. But I want you to understand, it is not easy for me. This is not an escape. I'm not some new age person trying to escape my pain by indulging in these completely unrealistic fantasies. It's not something I personally enjoy. And so I want to share the ascension symptom that I'm experiencing as a result of this, which is this feeling of mourning, of sadness. This, when I think about this new earth that's coming, of course I'm very happy in all kinds of ways. In fact, I'm planning out my perfect home, in the tropical forest next to the ocean, next to perfect waves. I'm already planning that part out, and other things in my life. So there are a lot of really cool things about it. No government, no taxes, no money. There's no such thing as money. You wake up every day. You do not have to worry about making money. You don't have to worry about going to work. You don't have to worry about paying your taxes or following any rules or any laws. You don't have to worry about meeting anybody's expectations. Your whole life will be focused on waking up in the morning and experiencing your own divinity, your own creativity, going out in nature, communing with all the stuff that we try to do on our vacations, having your entire life be this vacation in a new spiritual Eden. So that stuff is nice. But along with it, as I'm looking at this, I can't escape this feeling of sadness and mourning over what is going to disappear. And this started really hitting me in March, when we had that first solar storm that hit the earth, which was really powerful, where we had northern lights happening all over the place, and I came on here and said it's begun. The solar flash has begun. Let me be clear again. The information I'm getting, I'm using that phrase, information I'm getting, to let you know this isn't stuff that I'm simply parroting because I saw it on a YouTube channel or I read it somewhere. I go outside of my experience to help me, validate some of my experiences, but that's not where I'm getting this from. This is coming from personal interaction, messages that I'm getting either in out-of-body experiences, meditation experiences, or, higher dimensional beings will literally just show up and give me info. And that's where this is coming from. So that's it's important that you understand the significance of that phrase when I say information I'm getting. So, but the information I'm getting is that this world is coming to an end. It's all coming down. And it's what people are calling the solar flash is not, initially at least, it is not a singular event. It is a series of solar events that happen and come in waves. And the energy that's hitting the earth is of a brand new frequency. It's of a very specific kind of frequency that what ends up happening is it's like going into the earth herself and inseminating the earth and turning, creating something new. And this has been going on throughout Earth's existence. Again, I love science. True science is this. True science is not trying to figure out how things work. True science is looking at the objective evidence and coming to conclusions based on that. So a true scientist, if somebody really is just like a scientist, they'll say, we don't actually know how or why any of this happened. We can just tell you, here are some things that we know are true. Here are some facts we know are true based on just looking at what is going on, looking at the evidence. And so the evidence is very clear. Even with the dinosaurs, one of the most recent things that I saw is that scientists are coming to realize that the dinosaurs didn't go extinct because of a massive earth-killing meteorite, which is, if you've been told that a meteorite hit the earth, it was a world killer, and it killed all of the dinosaurs and a bunch of other things, and then the mammals came about. But what the new evidence is showing is that that's not what happened. That there may have been a meteorite crash, but it wasn't enough to kill off the dinosaurs. The dinosaurs would have survived. There wasn't this nuclear winter that came, and that actually didn't happen. The temperatures were still high enough. They didn't die off from that. They died off from something else. And as it turns out, now I'm going to tell you, this is some information I did get from outside. There's somebody on YouTube whose videos I find interesting, and her name is Allison Coe. Now, I don't believe absolutely everything that her clients tell her. She's a hypnotist, I guess learned from, what's her name? Whoever the woman was that started all this stuff. You know who I'm talking about, I forget her name. But I don't buy everything every single one of her clients says in hypnosis, because hypnosis is famous for people, in hypnosis sharing their unconscious fantasies and fears. Doesn't mean it's real. They think that they're channeling something. So this is the thing about this kind of work. Even interdimensional meditation, that I teach, there's always the possibility that you're misinterpreting the information that you're getting, or you are simply projecting your own stuff into it, and a mixture of the two. And there's then the problem of, what is objective reality when you're in interdimensional meditation. If a being tells you that this is going to happen tomorrow or next week, that might be true for a being who doesn't live in our timeline. You know what I mean? So you end up having this hodgepodge of truth and non-truth and probabilities and all that. So I don't take everything she says at face value, but as it turns out, what I have been told, what I have seen, and what I am intuiting, from 5 years ago, before I even believed in any of this, somebody's saying this exact same thing. That's what happened to the dinosaurs, that the earth goes through these different solar events where the sun gives out higher vibrational energy very specifically, and that solar energy actually comes in and starts flipping on and flipping off DNA, or you'll start seeing new DNA showing up in animals. By the way, and this is something I find very interesting. The truth is that dinosaurs never disappeared. They evolved into birds. Every time you see a bird, I don't care what kind of bird it is, whether it's a big giant, those big giant storks or an emu, or if it's a tiny little finch or a hummingbird, all of them came from dinosaurs. So what we're finding out here is that the sun comes in, it does its thing, it sends this seminal energy. It's a vibrational energy that goes in and starts flipping on all kinds of buttons inside the DNA of the animals that are living there, and you'll have an extinction event followed by a new species. And I've always thought that, even before I knew this, what I've loved about birds, once I came to understand that birds are actually dinosaurs turned into birds. What did dinosaurs do? They evolved beyond their big the big ones that walk around, stomping around, they evolve into a more beautiful being that flies. It's evolved beyond the earth, and it flies around, and they make unbelievable music with their voices. What would life be like without birds? What would nature be like? I wouldn't even know what that would be like. We don't even notice it, but birds have such a tremendously powerful effect on us. That's because these dinosaurs evolved into a higher dimensional form of themselves. And birds, if you make them as pets, they're incredibly intelligent. So this is what's happening. This is what's hitting the earth. What's hitting the earth is we're getting a new shift. It's happening right now as we speak. And so what is happening is that we are having physical responses to that. And I want to get to the dimensional response, because there's also a dimensional response that has everything to do with this, I believe, this ascension symptom. So we're getting hit with this energy, and what's happening is our own internal energy clock. I mean, if we just want to, we have, as human beings, we have an energy vibration. There's, you can measure the electromagnetic force of just the human being. You can measure it. The earth has her own Schumann resonance, at, what is it? 7.83 hertz, I believe it is. That's what it's been up until now. But what ends up happening is that's shifting. So when we get a very strong burst of this higher dimensional solar energy, our electromagnetic field in our body shifts. And you're going to feel this. And this is one of the reasons why people feel a lot of agitation and anxiety. Also why people have headaches, why people want to sleep a lot or they can't sleep. It's because, at the very least, our electromagnetic frequency is shifting up because of the higher vibrational energy coming from the sun. And the earth herself is absorbing it, and we're aligned with that. If you people call it earthing, and it's like it's a big deal, but I've been doing it my whole life. Being a surfer, I mean, I grew up barefoot, walking around barefoot and walking around the beach barefoot, and that's earthing. But it's just about being connected to nature. There's nothing big about it. So we vibrate with the resonance of the earth. And if the earth starts to shift up to a different resonance, so do we. And however this happens, I don't know, but it's not random. We know, even scientists know, that the radiation from the sun changes our DNA. So, in other words, I was born in '63. I don't have kids. I'm not going to have kids. But if I were to have a kid now, in this shift that we're having, that kid would probably have different DNA than I do. And so, like the Neanderthals who died out, my specific species of human would die out. There are things about me that I'm definitely feeling that maybe a lot of people don't feel. And so what I'm finding, all I'll do is I'll hear a song. The latest one was I was watching, I don't remember what I was watching. I was watching Family Guy or something like that, just getting ready to relax after doing all my work and going to bed and getting ready to meditate and go to bed. And I was watching, or maybe I just went straight to bed. I don't know if I meditated, when I meditated that day. But watching Family Guy, and for 2 or 3 seconds, the theme song to The Price is Right came on. And it made me sad. I got obsessed with it. And I went on to YouTube and I started, looking for The Price is Right theme song so I could listen to it. And it's because I remember being 8, 9 years old, coming home from school and sitting down in front of the television. And back then, we didn't even have cable TV. You had 5 channels, let's see, in LA County we had Channel 2, Channel 4, Channel 5, Channel 7, Channel 9, Channel 11, and Channel 13. You had 7 channels, and that was it. And so I had to watch whatever was on, and it was either, soap operas, or it was The Price is Right, or, and I'd wait around, maybe some cartoons would show up. And again, the cartoons that we watched in the 70s were already 30 and 40 years old, and they just repeated over and over again. You just watch the same Bugs Bunny cartoons, the same Tom and Jerry cartoons, every single day. You've seen them all 100 times, but it was better than nothing. And so that's what we did. And I'd come home and I'd listen to The Price is Right, come on down, because there was nothing else to watch. And so it was, there's, of course, I'm, going to be 60 this year. And of course, there's the whole thing about me getting old, looking back on remembering my youth, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody goes through that. But there's something else to this, which is I've been having this feeling when I think about movies in general, when I think about television, when I think about music and music genres and music stars and, all of that. And this feeling comes over me that this is all going to go away, that this is the last of it, and the next generations that come won't even know. You won't even be able to say, Frank Sinatra or whatever. Now, I'm not into Frank Sinatra, I never was, but we all know who he is. Pick your actor. We can't even throw out the names of actors, throw out the names of this or that or these, because that won't be part of their life. They won't have television. They won't have internet. They will be in a completely different reality, where they're in the reality of the mind and the reality of the spirit. They'll be creating things. They'll be making their own music. People will be focused on, local communities. They won't be tapped into this World Wide Web. And when we are tapped into something that is that expansive, it will be literally like having a big giant crystal in your house and putting your hand on it and tapping into the collective unconscious of the world. It's going to be totally different from anything we've ever seen or experienced. And if you try and talk about the world before, people are going to be like, that's over, man. That's done. And after a couple of generations, nobody's even going to remember. Because it'll be a different world, especially if what is coming to me is that it's actually going to be a completely different planet. It's not even going to be the same planet. It's going to be, an offshoot. It's going to be, the Earth herself is going to evolve into another species. So this comes down to the dimensional shift. So I want to bring this up, and I think this is part of this. Now, one of the things that makes this difficult for me, and I think it's true for everybody else, is it is still true that I am going through normal 3D shifts as everybody does. I'm hitting that point in my life where this is the time where I look back, because now I've got maybe another 30, if I'm really lucky, 40 years. And so the last part of my life, this is what happens. People get to a certain age and they become the elders, and they are the holders of history and the holders of teachings, and you go to them for advice and they remember. But part of what happens is they start to, all old people do this. Back in my day, when I was growing up, of course, people would be talking about the stars of their day. Oh, and none of the music, the music of your time is nothing like when I was, the real music was the big bands, and stuff like that people probably don't even wouldn't even know. I mean, there are names that are coming to me that I know that probably the majority of you have never heard of before. But when I was a kid or a young man, everybody would have known who they were. You know, and that's a normal thing. As I get older, I'm realizing people are going to forget about these names. These were household names, and people are already forgetting about a lot of them. And you know, they're never going to come back. But that is being combined with the dimensional shift, which is, you know, we have, there's multiple layers to this, and I hope you can listen to this. I hope I can explain this, and I hope that you can absorb what I'm talking about. So, you know, imagine like, you know, one of those Russian dolls where there's just a doll inside of a doll inside of a doll inside of a doll. So we have our own cultural three-dimensional bubble that we live in, which has to do with what I just talked about. Things that everybody understands, cultural icons, you know, things that have to do with our specific reality, and we seek to keep that going. We create a collective unconscious of that because it gives us continuity and it makes us feel like we live in a reality that we can see and experience and hold on to, and it gives us a sense of safety because we relate to that reality. And then there's a larger reality on top of that, which isn't isolated to a specific culture, but it's just having to do with being a human being in this time period where we have phones and planes and cars and you know, internet and all of that. That's pretty much all over the world, even though a different country, different language, but we all share that, and that reality holds us together, and we identify with that. And what's important about that is that we keep creating that. By the way, this is why you keep listening to your favorite bands. Why you watch me. If you watch me on a regular basis, because it creates a reality for you that you then can feel safe with. It creates something you can hold on to and you say, this is my reality and I understand it. You keep coming back to it. And the same thing, you know, if you're, let's say that if you got victim mentality, you keep coming back to your victim mentality, even if things are going good, because that's your reality. It gives you a feeling of safety and identity. If you were to start being successful and not being a victim, then you'd have to drop that. You'd have to die to that reality, which would be difficult. You'd have to identify with a new reality, which would be challenging and frightening. That's the nature of that. And so we have not only that, but we have, if we go beyond all of those specific things, personal, you know, regional, country, you know, and we keep going to the whole world, then we've got something that goes beyond that, which is the third dimension itself. And the third dimension itself is an actual bubble that we create every single day. Every single day that you get up and you continue to project what you think three-dimensional reality is. Human beings can't fly. Human beings can't split into two. You know, we can't levitate. There's all kinds of rules that we have to follow because that's reality. That's physical reality. And physical reality was different for our ancestors. You know, people who lived in a time before, you know, the reality we have now, people could do all kinds of different things. People were more psychic. They were more telepathic. They could accomplish feats of strength that we can't even begin to imagine. They, you know, even to this day, you know, if you really find some native indigenous practices, like for instance, there are still some people around who are skinwalkers. in the continental United States. These are people, these are indigenous people who have this ability to shapeshift. And there are some people who have, some like people who like rangers and things like that, who've bumped into these beings before. Human beings who shapeshift into different animals. And the reason why they can do that is because they don't accept the accepted understanding of what reality is and the rules. That is something we choose to do. We create it to give ourselves stability, and so that we don't lose our minds. So the third dimension has its own, even a shapeshifter lives in the third dimension. And even a shapeshifter has to choose to believe in a certain body of rules about what three-dimensional reality is. And as you've heard me talk about before, and I recommend everybody do their own research. Go and research the double slit experiment. Go research all the different double slit experiments, and you'll find out that the bottom line of that experiment is that physical reality in the third dimension is contingent upon an observer with an expectation. Notice how I didn't say intent. Because you could have an intent and not be able to pull it off, and it's because if you have an intention that's different from your expectation, what you believe is possible. If you want to intend yourself to have the ability to, levitate, but if your expectation is that's never going to happen, then the expectation is what your physical reality will obey. And this is so deeply ingrained in us. By the way, this is what Carlos Castaneda was trying to teach in his books. This concept of the third dimensional reality is our projection of our expectation. Now, you might be asking, that sounds great, but I can't just simply decide to change my expectation about reality and shift things around. That's because your 3D human physical life is dependent on three-dimensional reality being a solid thing that we can depend on. Because if it wasn't, it means that you could disappear. You could stop existing. Your cells would come apart, and you would no longer have a physical body to walk around in. And nobody wants that. People want to stay alive. The most powerful instinct you have is the instinct of self-preservation. So what's important to understand here is that the need to stay in the third dimension and create the third dimension isn't about right or wrong or good or bad or awakened or unspiritual. It has to do with our desire to survive. And the only time that you will ever be able to shift beyond the third dimension is when your need to survive supersedes the third dimension. When you start to believe that the third dimension is harmful to your physical reality, you will want to shift to a higher dimension where you will be able to survive. That can only happen through spiritual progress. Because doing spiritual work, you start to realize that the things that you have been programmed to believe by the third dimension itself, and of course by all of the people around you and the collective unconscious, which is that in order to survive, we have to, it's fight or flight. That is ingrained in our DNA. Your DNA is ingrained to respond to fight or flight. As the Hopis say, we're leaving the age of the animal into the age of the human being. So it means that human beings now are animals. They operate from fear. They either want to fight it, they want to run away from it, they want to kill it, fuck it, or eat it. That's how, once we've dealt with that, then Then we start to think about spirituality. Then we meditate. But our spiritual understanding is secondary to our physical survival. And anybody who says different is lying to you. The people, I was listening to the story of Swami Vivekananda. I don't follow him. I don't know a lot about him. I was just listening to this one specific story about him. And according to the story, excuse me, my kombucha is carbonated, that he really wanted to achieve whatever their form of enlightenment is in the Kriya Yoga tradition. And boy, I have a lot to say about that. We've got to make some videos about the pineal gland. I'm discovering a lot about the pineal gland. And what you're learning here, by the way, the Warrior 90-Day Challenge, all of that stuff that I teach is powerhouse stuff directly associated with the awakening and the empowerment of the pineal gland. And those of you, if you're doing the Maoshan spirit fighting, maoshan.thunderwizard.com, I'll write it down here. For those of you that are doing that, after doing some research, I've come to understand that the reason why that stuff is so powerful is because it is an energetic shamanic martial art that is hiding a very powerful technology to flip on the pineal gland. That's why those Maoshan guys were unbeatable. Not because of any specific moves that they were doing. It was because the movements that you do in those forms are actually very advanced ways of flipping on the pineal gland. But Vivekananda, they do their Kriya Yoga meditation and blah, blah, blah. And he achieved this level of enlightenment, which was that he went into this state of bliss and he could only feel his head. He couldn't feel his body. And his teacher came in and supposedly stopped that process because he says, your karma is you have work to do. In other words, if I had let him continue into that meditational experience, he wouldn't have been able to physically stay. He couldn't have stayed in his body. He would have either died and left his body, or his body would have changed. And again, this has to do with all traditions have this. The one I learned from the Maoshan tradition, the legend is that these masters, when they got to a certain level, what would happen is they would go into a deep state of meditation where they would go into, I forget what that word is, they would go into this state where their body shuts down and everything, goes so low that if you touched them, you'd think they were dead, but their heart is just barely beating. And they would bury them. They would put them in a coffin and bury them. And then they would come back a couple weeks later and they'd look, and sure enough, the body would be desiccated except the heart would still be, you could see the heart inside the body just barely beating. But it'd be basically just this skeleton with thin skin on it. And it's basically a dead body with a beating heart. And they knew that the person was still alive and he was, out of his body doing whatever he was doing. And then they'd come back and dig him up again, I don't know, however long, let's say, 90 days later, they dig him back up and there's nobody in there. And then the person would show up, walk through the wall and say, hey guys, what's going on? And that's because what ended up happening is that this is the point I'm trying to get to. They get to the point where they no longer identify their physical survival with the rules of third dimensional reality. That's what this is all about. It has nothing to do with being a good person. It has nothing to do with being righteous. You in and out of your understanding of your identification with what you think will keep you alive emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, sociologically, whatever else. Once you get pushed out of that, then your attachment to reality shifts, and then you can go to another dimension. That's it. I know for a fact, I've seen, the teachers that I had, one of them specifically achieved this thing where he died for a little bit and came back, and he had these superpowers, but he was a jerk. He was a jerk. He was incredibly infantile. He was jealous, and he was extremely insecure, and he was abusive. And I mean, I learned a lot from the guy, but then after a while, you just got to go another way. This is what I did. Actually, they got rid of me for whatever reason. But he was still in the third dimension. So the thing that in our third dimension that we're going to have to get rid of, the one thing that keeps you vibrating in the third dimension is the belief that you are isolated and alone in the universe, and that your value, your lovability, comes from what you do for others and not for who you are. All spiritualities come to this same conclusion, where they come to this bliss of awareness. And in that bliss of awareness that they all come to, they will talk about how they realize that the only thing that's ever mattered is that they've awakened to their essence. And you've heard no shortage of people who I think may have achieved some kind of enlightenment when they say enlightenment is just becoming aware of who you really are. The guys that live in the mountains in the Himalayas, some of them, are well known, who, would walk around and they'd ask, do you meditate? No, I don't meditate. Do you do any? No, I don't do anything. Well, why do you live alone in a cave? It's because I don't need anything. I just enjoy being with myself. I don't need anything. I'm filled with the happiness of just being higher dimensional plane. So the sadness that everybody might be feeling, I think it's not just me. I think a lot of people are feeling a sadness come over them because they are aware that an entire reality is going to disappear. And to the extent that we identify our survival with that reality, we will feel sadness. We will feel longing. We will feel like this is how I'm feeling now. And it's a direct result of doing more and more interdimensional meditation. Thankfully, by the way, I went surfing today, and the surfing was just phenomenal. And it pulled my head out of my rear end. And I realized I have so many options. I can still continue to live life the way I want to. It may not be, worst case scenario, it may not be exactly the way that I want it to be, but, I can travel around the world and surf and come on. And I'm all bent out of shape because I'm trying to force something into happening. And that's just, that's why surfing is my medicine, because it literally pulls my head out of my rear end. But anyway, so the point is that to the extent that we start to sense this new world coming into reality, and the closer we get to that new world, we have to look back and say goodbye to not only this old world, but our identification with that entire reality system. And even though I know some of you are saying, no, get rid of it, I know some of you are coming from your anger and your hurt and your pain. But if you have a victim mentality, by the way, you are addicted to the third dimension. You can't be in the fifth dimension and still have a victim mentality. You can't be in the fifth dimension and still have anger or resentment. You can't be in the fifth dimension and have fear of others. People ask questions like, well, what happens if I get to the fifth dimension and my parents are there and I don't like my parents? What do I do then? You're still in a third dimensional understanding if that's the kind of stuff you're saying to yourself. I don't want to go to the fifth. What happens when I get to the fifth dimension and I can't do this and I can't do that? You're still in fear. I understand it, don't get me wrong. But you're still, it means that you feel an identification with the third dimension, and we need to acknowledge that. We need to acknowledge that we're attached to this. So me just hearing the theme to The Price is Right, reminding me of being 10 years old and watching The Price is Right on television, which I hated watching, that making me sad is I became conscious of something that hit me in March, which was, holy crap, this whole world is going to go away. It's not going to be here anymore. It will cease to exist. And I think that's what happened with the Neanderthals. I think that's what happened with the dinosaurs. There might be a world where dinosaurs still exist. There might be a vibration of the world where they still exist. There might be a vibration of the world where Neanderthals still exist. We might shift ourselves up to the vibration of Sasquatch. Maybe he already, went across. And one of the things that really struck me about Alison Coe's, one of her videos about the two worlds, this 5 years ago she was doing this, is one of her clients talking about when people get to the higher dimensional earth, that they're very sad, that they're crying. And so she's asking the person who's watching, said, why are they so sad? Why are they crying? And the person said, because not everybody chose to come. That there were people that chose to stay in the lower dimensional earth, and they've had to mourn over the loss that their parents or their family or their spouse or their friends, some of them chose not to come. And they have to mourn over that. And that really struck me. That's one of the things that gave me the experience that's real. Because what I hear from the victims who have not gone beyond their third dimensional fear-based narcissism, who believe that they want to go to 5D and they are full of virtue signaling about 5D this and 5D that, and yet at the same time they will instantaneously self-righteously damn the royals, they're going to burn in hell and good riddance to them, and the Illuminati, they're not going to make it, and the evil people aren't going to make it. People who talk like that are going to stay here. Those people are not going to make it. You cannot be filled with that much rage and be self-righteous about it and invest in that and move on to the higher dimensional plane. Don't get me wrong, you don't have to be perfect. You can have sadness and anger and resentment and still move, but you have to be, acknowledge that those feelings, you can't identify with them and operate from them. You have to let that go. Anyway, I forgot what I was going to say. I was going to say something else. But that was how I knew it was real, because if it's just somebody making stuff up and talking out of their rear end, they're going to talk like that. They're going to go, yes, all of the spiritual people, they made it to 5D, and the bad, evil people, they didn't make it because they weren't good enough. Not like me. I'm a spiritual person only doing love and light. And then, that's how I know somebody's full of crap, when they talk with that kind of self-righteous indignation about, being, in the fifth dimension. Then they don't know what they're talking about. They may want it, but they're still in that space. But somebody who's willing to let go of their fear and have it. This is the thing. It's frightening to me. I won't lie to you. When I see this now, and I go into higher dimensional meditation, and I see this, it's a frightening thing for me to watch. Like physically, my insides get frightened. It's frightening. Going someplace we don't understand, something brand new. If you don't have any fear about it, my hair is off to you. All right, so I think I've said everything I'm going to say. Bear in mind again what this channel is about before I start getting into anything. Why don't I just do this before I go any further? I have what's called the 6 phases of ascension to 5D. This is, I work with you personally, one-on-one, for 6 sessions, and I take you through the 6 phases of, or at least the first 6 phase process to ascension to 5D. And I'm only taking a limited number of people. So if you're interested in that, go to thunderwizard.com and subscribe to that. Hey, if you don't like it, you can unsubscribe whenever you want. If you have one session with me and you don't think it's worth it, you can unsubscribe. You got nothing to lose. If you want to have access to this energy practice that I'm telling you, I am telling you without any doubt in my mind whatsoever. The practices that I teach are the most powerful and the fastest ways to stimulate the pineal gland, which will be absolutely necessary for us to even begin to connect to 5D. If you want to get started on that process now, you can go to thunderwizard.com and subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. It's just videos that are members only, and you press play and you just follow the videos. And again, you can unsubscribe whenever you want if you don't want it. I mean, it's the price of a freaking video game. You know, I know you spend more than that on all kinds of things in your life. You'll have access to that. You'll have access to the interdimensional meditation course. You'll have access to the manifestation mastery course. You'll have access to the mastery of shamanism course. All of that for the freaking price of a video game. Courses.thunderwizard.com. You can find all of the things that I teach, all of the services I provide. And again, I am absolutely flabbergasted that people aren't buying my books. My books should be flying off the digital shelf, and I don't know why they are. I mean, there are people I know that never miss a live stream, and yet they won't spend 10 or 15 bucks on a book. I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me. So there's stuff that I talk about in this book, Interdimensional Revolution, which I'm not allowed to talk about on YouTube. So if you want to get into the nitty-gritty of things beyond what you can comprehend, go to Amazon, Kindle, or Audible and get Interdimensional Revolution. Also, Extraterrestrials Are Coming to Earth. Also, The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. If you master that book, you're guaranteed to go to 5D. If you, Odin Says Jesus Was a Coward. Those books are absolutely essential. And then there's a bunch of other books in there as well. So go check that out. You can go to Audible at thunderwizard.com, or just Michael William Denny. There's my name right there. Just write that and then .com, and you'll see all of my books. And with that, I'm now interested in taking some questions. It's question and answer. Excuse me. And so I like questions. If you have a question, write the word question in all caps, please. The word question in all caps. If you have a feeling, sharing an emotion. A feeling isn't, I'm strongly attached to this belief. A feeling is an emotion. You have to be able to verbalize an emotion. These are, by the way, emotions are the way people function in the 5th dimension. They don't function, their intellect is second to their emotions. So learning to be able to communicate from your emotions and then taking conscious action on them is a 5th dimensional skill, which you can begin to learn now. You can do it here. Write a feeling and share your emotions. Zeralath Immortal, honest feeling. I have been on an emotional roller coaster this week with my car being replaced and keeping my gal happy. It's been a trust challenge for me in the universe. I didn't hear a feeling in there. Zeralath, you do need to learn how to do this more. Maybe your gal would be happier if you were able to communicate your emotions verbally. You're giving me a situation but you're not telling me the emotions. You told me you're on an emotional roller coaster. I don't know what emotions those are. See what I mean? Zarelath, seriously, you've been trying, this is something you really got to learn how to do. I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm scared. Those are emotions. I don't see any of them in there. Okay? What else? Zarelath Immortal again, honest feeling. I am disappointed. There you go. That's kind of a question. Excuse me, that's we're getting closer to a verbalizing the feeling. I am disappointed that so many people devalued or dismissed the classics of entertainment. I may be ascending, but I love Looney Tunes. Zarelath Immortal question. Do you know why there seems to be a trend of truther groups infighting and fracturing since 2020? I don't know. I don't follow truther groups, so I don't know why. Most of my social groups are all divided now over mistrust. Well, what's happening, look, everything is coming down. Everything. This is what I was talking about in a previous video that I just uploaded yesterday or the day before. Shiva's destroying something. But I wanted to share this in that video and I didn't get to it. But so what happens with the human body is that the human body, what makes you, the difference between a living human and a dead human in terms of their physical body is that there is a spirit in there, and that spirit actually creates, among other things, a measurable amount of electricity and electromagnetism. So when you have a dead body, there's no electricity, there's no energy, there's no heat. That's where the heat comes from. It means that the spirit is gone, because the spirit is what creates it. So spirit, again, this is higher dimensional beings have an extremely powerful electromagnetic presence. If you are in the presence, even if they're just outside of our dimension, but if they're anywhere near you, the hairs are going to stick out on, if you had any, on the back of your neck, and you're going to feel a much higher electromagnetic charge. And that's if you're only getting like 1 or 2% of their charge. If you were to feel the electromagnetic charge of a higher dimensional being, it would fry you. So a dead human has no electromagnetic charge in it, right? Now, what ends up happening with a dead body is that all of the bacteria in the body that actually is doing all kinds of things, helping you digest food and doing all kinds of stuff, the bacteria starts to then destroy the body. When you see a body, body that's preserved is because it's so cold or it's so dry that no bacteria can get to it. But your own bacteria, that's why bodies swell and they burp and they fart. Dead bodies will burp and fart and things like that. It's because the bacteria starts to eat everything. Starts to eat. This is why they embalm people, because it kills all the bacteria so that the body won't start. The body starts to devour itself. If you look at society, and every day I watch this, every day I watch just the headlines, just the 30 seconds of the NBC nightly news, just to see the headlines. And every single time there is a massive shooting. This time it's, they're killing old ladies. Some woman got shot in the head, the mother of 6. And we've got this border crisis where millions of people who are what? No matter how you look at it. If you look at it, oh my God, the migrants are coming over. Yeah, that's right. You can be damn well sure that millions of people from Central and South America who don't have access to the same education, who don't speak the same language, who don't have the same skills, you can be damn sure that there's going to end up a lot of unhappy crime and crap like that, and it's going to cause chaos. And even if we look at it good, these poor people, they're coming from this horrible, I mean, at the very least, society is falling apart to such a degree that millions of people are risking their lives just to get to the promised land of the United States. I wish they knew more about the U.S. than they do now. They might not think the same way, but it means that everything's coming down. The narrative is coming down. It's falling apart. Wars, everything is starting to crumble. Everything is going to start devouring itself. So that's going to be true with, these, look, I've been, even when I wasn't into this, I wasn't into these truther people, not because now I look back on it and the basis of what they're saying is true, that there is this, conspiracy to hide the truth from you, but that they're all still full of their own ego. They're still full of their own conflations, and people, have their egos attached to what they believe and they fight within themselves. What's happened is that the spirit has left and the body is now attacking itself. It's starting to consume itself. So this is going to happen in politics. It's already happening in politics. Look at RFK Jr. He doesn't fit into any mold, and look at him. He came out of nowhere. He shouldn't exist. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He shouldn't exist because he doesn't, there's beliefs that he has that are absolutely as far right as you can go, and there are beliefs that he has that are as far left as you can go, and nobody likes him. He's nobody, and people are afraid of him. They don't know what to do with him. He represents the destruction of the system, the destruction of weight, and Trump is the same way, by the way. And again, I'm not talking about either of them as good or bad or right or wrong, but Trump is the same way. You can't put Trump in a box. Trump does not fall in line with the establishment on the right or the left. He destroys things. He's destroying it. Good for him. I'm glad. The thing needs to come down. But these forces are forces of, the whole thing is starting to destroy itself. And that's why when a body dies, the first thing that happens is the body starts to destroy itself. So, this is one of the things also that makes me sad, because I look at it, and again, this is why all of you should give up on politics, in my belief. It's just a waste of time. There's nothing that's going to be solved. Passing a certain law, it doesn't matter who gets elected. It doesn't matter. Whoever gets elected, there's a government here that even if they weren't corrupt and they knew what they were doing, they're only here, the surface, underneath that is this whole other government that nobody ever sees that makes all of the decisions. And I can tell you this for a fact. I can't prove it to you, but I certainly believe it. Every time somebody becomes president, at some point, the CIA and the NSA and people like that take the president inside of a room and they start telling things to that president, and that president comes out and is never the same. Never the same. And there are things that presidents know that they will never tell anybody, because they know what it'll mean. And so you can read between the lines. All right, what else? Chen question: could you guide me on how to achieve lucid dreaming? I have videos on how to do shamanic dreaming. So you can go look for that on my channel. But if you really look, lucid dreaming is just another form of interdimensional meditation. So I would recommend do the interdimensional meditation. Hey, here's the thing about interdimensional meditation. This is why I got into CE5, human initiated contact with higher dimensional beings, is because I've trained with masters, and I've always been disappointed because I get to a certain point and I learn as much, or I become exposed to as much as they have to offer, and then I realize that what I really want is beyond their knowledge. It's happened my entire life, and when I first saw, and everybody here should go watch this movie if you haven't already. Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. It is a movie you can watch for free on YouTube. So go watch it. When I saw that movie over a year ago, my first thought was not, oh my God, there are higher dimensional extraterrestrial beings. That's not my first thought. My first thought was, oh my God, I want to meet them because I want them to teach me really high level meditations. I want them to teach me the meditations that no human being could have ever taught me. I want to learn the energy practices that humans can't do. That was my thought. And I actually felt guilty about it, like that's very selfish of me. But when I did CE5, that was my goal. And to my absolute surprise and delight, that was what they wanted to give me. I said, we'll teach you everything you want to learn. It's just a question of whether or not you can handle it. We'll teach you anything you want. And so, this happened yesterday, and I'm telling this to you not to brag. I'm telling this to you because you can have the same experience, and I hopefully either you're learning it on your own or I'll be able to do what I can to help. But my pineal gland is, the energy that's coming through my higher chakras is, I've never experienced anything like it. And that's what I wanted from them. So you can have that too if you want. So you're asking me about how to do shamanic journeying and lucid dreaming. I would go to the masters. You want me to teach you some old, outdated human form of lucid dreaming? I can do that. But why don't you go directly to the masters? Because here's something that everybody needs to understand. Every single spiritual discipline, whether it's mantra, whether it's meditation, whether it's shamanism, whether it's magic, no matter what it is, if it works, guess where it came from? It was channeled to humans by these guys. So why not go straight to them? That's why, look, if I was trying to be rich, I would be keeping all these things to myself and saying, I have this is what people used to do. If you went to a guru, it's because the guru downloaded something and then they had the bed and you only had, I'm saying everybody gets to do it now. You don't have to wait around for, some human being to maybe give you something. You can go straight to the source and figure it out yourself. So I would recommend that you do CE5, which is a higher, more effective version of lucid dreaming. And if you want to learn how to lucid dream, have them teach you. That's my suggestion. What else? Chen, question, is there a connection between lucid dreaming and the opening of the third eye? That's a pretty obvious question. So Chen, I'm getting the feeling you're new to the channel, yes? Nothing personal, but you're asking first grade questions in a doctorate level video. These are very superficial, very general questions. It tells me that you haven't watched any of my videos. You haven't read any of my books, right? You haven't done any of the free practices, not to mention the stuff I've got up here. You haven't done the Awakening the Immortals or the Heaven and Earth or the Hool Breath, right? So go do that first before you start asking me all of these superficial questions about things I've already talked a lot about. Go do the work. The Hool Breath, I'm writing this here. Go Google that, H-U-U-L breath. You'll find videos of me teaching that. The Awakening the Immortals. Go do that, because the questions you're asking are stuff that we've already accomplished and we're doing, and you can do as well. Spend some time on the channel, maybe read a couple of the books, spend some more time on videos, get an understanding of what it is I'm doing here so that you can, especially if you do the practices, you'll have more educated questions that will get me excited. Because those questions aren't exciting me because, again, they're just entry-level stuff that, if you just follow the channel, you'll learn all that stuff just by being here. Anyway, welcome to the channel. Make use of the videos. This is a library. Make use of it. Do the work. Okay, looking for the questions. Not seeing any. Agent of the Universe. Honest feeling. Somebody just ordered another one of my books. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. Someone is buying them. Good. Honest feeling. You're talking about the fading 3D reality has stimulated in me sadness about what we will lose, but I'm excited for what is to come. I relate to that feeling. Timothy Zoll, honest feeling. Sometimes I feel like I'm alternating between using these practices to escape, plateauing, and checking out from the noise. However, I feel more aware, serene, and better sobriety. So you bring up a good point, which is connected to this. I was just talking about this earlier today with one of the 6-month apprenticeship people, which is that here are some typical things that come from doing interdimensional meditation, interacting with higher dimensional beings. First thing that will happen is you will think nothing is happening. And that is because you are invested, any human being is, you're invested in the 3-dimensional bubble because you're a 3-dimensional being, and your survival and your sanity depends upon 3-dimensional reality being solid and real. And so when you interact with a being that's in a higher dimension, it doesn't even register. Even if they're yelling at you, hey, I'm right here. Even if they're right in front of you yelling at you, you won't see, you won't hear, you won't feel anything. Because your survival depends on 3rd-dimensional reality being solid. So that's the first thing that happens, is nothing happened. This happened to me. If you go watch my video, How I Became an Extraterrestrial, I got it on my channel. You'll see the first 2 times I did it, I didn't think anything happened, even though I caught on video a voice, even though I caught on video an orb flying above me, even though I saw unbelievable things happening in front of me, I still was like, I don't think anything happened. It's because my 3rd-dimensional reality wouldn't let me even acknowledge it. Even if you said, did you see those weird lights? Yeah, I saw the lights, but that might have been, and then I'll come up with some completely unbelievable explanation. The second thing that happens is what I just said, is that you will gaslight yourself out of the experience. Something will happen, and you'll talk yourself out of it. You'll say that was really this, or I made that up, or I don't think that was real. You'll gaslight yourself out of it, or you'll make up some conclusion. Now, if you get past those first 2 stages, I should write this down, the stages of what happens when you do CE5. I should do that and make a video about that. The next stage that will happen is that something will get through to you and you'll realize you're not making it up. And this is why it helps to have the radios, because that's what did it for me. When an ET took over my radio and did things that the radio can't possibly do, I couldn't deny that something was happening. And then my brain broke on me. My 3D bubble machine broke, and I was in a lot of trauma because my reality was coming apart. But then what will happen is your weakness, whatever your 3D programming that keeps you part of the destructive narcissistic narrative. And what I mean by that is in order to function in 3D, you have to interact with a narcissistic program, let's call it, a narcissistic narrative. Narcissism doesn't mean I'm full of myself. That's not what narcissism means. Narcissism is based in the concept that you do not have any value unless, except for what you do, what you accomplish. The easiest one is money. We have a society that will ostracize you and might even kill you if you don't have money. Let's be clear about what money is. Money is an idea. It doesn't exist. It's not a real thing. Paper money is not a real thing. Coins, you can't eat coin, you can't wear it. It doesn't provide anything. It is a symbol. It is nothing more than a symbol. Now we're heading towards this digitalized currency, which, once they have that and you say, yes, digitalized currency exists, and you choose to use that to buy and sell, they have all control over you. And everybody's worth, we talk about, how horrible it would be if there's this social credit score. We already have a social credit score. It's called a credit score. That's your social credit score. I can't go and buy something. I can't rent something. This is one of the problems I had in Florida, is that, I wanted to rent a house and I couldn't because my credit score wasn't good enough. Even though I have money, I make plenty of money to survive, my credit score, for whatever reason, said I wasn't good enough. And so people wouldn't even let me look at the place. They wouldn't even let me in the door because I didn't have the right credit score. Even I could walk into them with wads of cash. They would have said, no, your credit score is not good enough. This means that your value is based on how much non-existent money you have. That is narcissistic. So that's what I mean by that. So your connection to this narcissistic reality is going to get tested. The first thing that happened to me when I became aware that I was in contact with a higher dimensional being, I could feel his finger on my forehead, on my crown chakra, and my radio is going crazy and I'm flipping out. The first thing that happened to me is that I had this overwhelming feeling of not being worthy. In fact, if you hear on the video, I'm trying not to break down into tears and like on the floor sobbing, because all of a sudden I felt so unworthy. And I told the being that, I said, I don't feel worthy of this. Now, to my credit, I said, I need you to show me that I'm worthy to be talking to you. And then a bunch of other stuff started happening. And I started, blinking back the tears even more. But that was my narcissistic and here's what you don't understand. My feeling of being unworthy is actually a part of my 3D protective system. It's what allows me to stay in the third dimension, is the feeling that I'm unworthy, I'm not good enough. So the next stage of interacting with higher dimensional beings is you're going to get hit with that. That is probably the main reason why most people don't feel like anything is going on, because once they start having those feelings will start talking you out of all of it. And what's really happening is they're trying to avoid having that feeling. Now, I've been working on myself. I would say that 59 years of therapy, meditation, 12-step recovery work gave me the ability to tolerate the intense self-devaluation that I felt when that being appeared in my reality. If I didn't have the ability to tolerate that feeling and keep going forward, I would have probably ended it. Which is, by the way, what happened to me 20 years ago when I came in contact with a Sasquatch. What happened was that being showed up and I said to that being, I won't survive if you come into my camp. Not because he's big and hairy and scary, but because the energy, the higher dimensional energy he brought with him, he was clearly a teacher. He brought this energy that I felt like I was going to die. And what was going to happen is, if I had let him into the camp, is that I would have had to face that feeling of unworthiness. And I couldn't tolerate it. I wasn't ready. So I told him to leave. So, first you're going to think nothing's going on. Then you're going to gaslight yourself out of it. And then you're going to have whatever yours is. Mine was, I'm not worthy of this. Some people will come up with something else. I haven't accomplished enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not spiritual enough. I'm a bad person for even, this is why people think ETs are demons. This is why people need to believe in false beings of light who supposedly trick you into reincarnating. It is coming from their inability to face their own narcissistic 3D survival mechanism. So it's called projection. This is what insane people do. This is what narcissists and borderlines and people with severe emotional challenges who can't handle intimate emotional relationships, they say the whole world is evil. Everybody's out to get them. Paranoid delusions. So when people say that about, they're these evil, what's his name? Whoever that guy's name is who came up with the reptilian thing. That's why I know the guy's got a serious mental illness. Because he projects onto reality that there are these evil reptilians that are, it's clear that he feels so unlovable that when higher dimensional reality comes to him, his only response is to feel as though he is this evil, horrible reptilian, and so he projects that and says they are, and they're out to get me. This is why people believe in the devil, because they hate themselves. They project their self-hatred out into higher dimensions. So you're going to feel this. And I've gone through, I had experiences where these higher dimensional beings came to me and they showed me things. They pulled years of karma off of me because I actually got to talk to my deceased family members and I learned about past lives. And then the next day, out of nowhere, I'm saying, oh my God, I can't trust these beings. They're evil. And I had to stop myself and say, what are you talking about? All they've done is help you. All they've done is shown you unconditional love. What do you mean they're evil? And I had to go, they haven't actually done anything. I'm just scared. I'm just scared. And I feel like the next feeling I had was I'm betraying the human race. And the truth is I am betraying the third dimension. Now I'm conscious of it, which is why it's called an interdimensional revolution. I am consciously fighting against the third dimension. And I have to live with that. The farther I go in this fight, the more of all of those self-devaluing, narcissistic narrative feelings within me I have to face and let go of. And that's why, if I have a really big day where I go deep into interdimensional meditation, the next day I'm depressed. I was very depressed yesterday because the day before I had a huge interdimensional revelation. It means I died a little more. Every time I die to the third dimension, I have a negative response. My 3D comes back with a negative response. So you're going to go through all that stuff yourself. There's nothing more challenging than this. Anybody who can do interdimensional meditation on a daily basis is a warrior. So Timothy Zoll, all you're saying is that your three-dimensional self-devaluation starts coming up with these different, attacks on you. Somebody told you somewhere in your life that you're just doing that to escape. Somebody devalued that took hold, and so as you grow, the first thing you tell yourself is, I'm just doing this try and escape. Then you say plateauing. Well, I don't know, that's just part of reality. And then you say checking out from the noise, and I don't see what's wrong with that. Why is that a bad thing? Somebody told you you're not allowed to check out from the noise. And you've decided that if you do that, you're a bad person. So that's all I'm hearing in that is that you're making a lot of progress. As you say, your life is getting better. You feel more aware, serene, and you have better sobriety. But what's happening is all of those narcissistic narrative self-defense mechanisms are being challenged. And so they're cropping up. Listen, when you eat bad fish, you got to puke it up. And, everybody's done this. I can remember eating bad shrimp and eating bad fish. And I can remember as I'm getting ready to throw up, I'm like praying, please don't let me throw up, which is the exact wrong thing to say. When I'm throwing up, I hate it. Life is horrible. But once I'm done puking, whew, I feel so much better. And I can go to sleep. All that's happening is you're puking up all of your emotional, three-dimensional, self-devaluing, self-protection mechanisms. And there's nothing you can do to avoid that. So get used to it. The more interdimensional meditation you do, you're going to be happier, healthier, more prosperous, more spiritual, and you're going to go through negative feelings as a result. I think that's why I'm here, to give that message. I think that's the reason I was born in this time, is so that I could go through all the crap I went through all my life. I could learn all the spiritual stuff I learned all my life, and then to have this experience to tell people shifting into 5D means puking up all of the bad fish from 3D. And as long as you understand that that's all that's happening, then you can continue with the process and you'll be okay. All right, I don't see any more questions, so I'm going to assume that we're done. I feel so much better that I went surfing today. Oh my God. I can't believe that I was just so trapped in such a limited framework of my mind, and now I have all kinds of, options, which I didn't have before. I mean, I had them, I just wasn't allowing myself to see them, because I was trying to force the universe to give me one option only, and it wasn't going in that way. And then I started feeling like everything's falling down around me, and it was just, so I'm as human as everybody else. All right, so that's it. I guess we're done. Thank you guys for showing up. Thanks for listening. Again, if you're just coming onto this channel listening to me talk, you're getting almost nothing. At the very least, please go and look on my playlists. Do the energy work. Do the Awakening the Immortals. Do the Hool Breath. Do the free guided interdimensional meditations. Please do the work. Make all of the crap I've gone through and all of my thousands of lifetimes to get here with this message, because this is something that they told me. They said, you've come here, and they went through all of my lifetimes. They said, you learned all this so that you could figure out why human beings are so afraid. And I know why. And I'm teaching you about that. And I'm giving you the exercises to get you through that. So make all of my sacrifice worth it and do the exercises, please. If you do those exercises, you will help me evolve. If you want to give back to me, please do a spiritual discipline every day. Even if it's 3 minutes or 10 minutes a day. Just the Hool Breath for 3 minutes a day. Awakening the Immortals once a day. If you do that, you will be helping me. Not to mention every other conscious being in the universe, not to mention yourself. But it's all about doing the work. All right, that's it. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for showing up.